immigration crackdown.
We go where the threat takes us.
Border Patrol Chief Gregory Bavino tells us where to expect more raids and his message about California's sanctuary state law.
It creates an atmosphere of lawlessness.
They're profiling. They are profiling.
Fighting back.
That's not enforcing the law, that's violating the law.
Why Senator Alex Padilla says federal agents are making the wrong arrests. And the likelihood lawmakers in Washington fix the immigration system that has deeply divided both sides.
California is uninvestable.
Plus, we sit down with Chevron executive Andy Walls.
It's just a very difficult place to run your business.
What he says needs to happen to keep refineries in California.
We should have done that 10 years ago.
This is California Politics 360.
Welcome and thank you for joining us for California Politics 360. I'm Ashley Zabala. We start with the latest on the immigration battle as tensions deepen between the Trump administration, state leaders, and local law enforcement. It was back in July, masked Border Patrol agents raided a Home Depot in South Sacramento, arresting 11 people. Following the raid, the head of the Border Patrol's El Centro region posted a video to social media saying the federal presence was not going anywhere.
Folks, there is no such thing as a sanctuary city. There's no such thing as a sanctuary state. For Ma and Pa America, we've got your backs, whether it's here in Sacramento or nationwide.
U.S. Border Patrol Sector Chief Gregory Bavino announced this week that agents will be on the move as the Trump administration ramps up resources for his agency. I spoke to him about recent raids and what he says Californians should expect going forward. Earlier this summer, Chief Bavino, we saw you standing on the steps of the state capitol after you had just carried out a raid at a Home Depot in South Sacramento. You noted you're not going anywhere. I understand a lot of your work is down there in Southern California, but how are you deciding which communities you go into?
Sure. The communities that we go into and our law enforcement actions, like the one you saw in Sacramento, are based on what we call targeted enforcement. We have predetermined or predefined targets that we look to create a law enforcement function to go after. So that's what we did in Sacramento. That particular operation, there were some individuals that we were after, and we did end up apprehending several individuals that were aggravated felons and some folks that you would not want walking the streets of your community with impunity.
Could we expect to see more operations like those up here in Northern California? I know we mainly saw just the one. I understand there are smaller operations, but could we see something like that again?
Yes, ma'am. It's very possible. We go where the threat takes us, and Los Angeles, as you know, is rife with illegal immigration and some pretty bad actors down here in Los Angeles. But we go where that threat is, and if we see a threat in Sacramento or San Francisco or anywhere else that we think we need to go, then we'll certainly go there and do that.
Something we've heard from our local law enforcement up here in Northern California is that California's sanctuary state law, also known as Senate Bill 54, that has tied their hands from working with you there at Border Patrol and with immigration officials overall. I mean, is that accurate in your eyes? Is there a way you all could work together under the law right now?
Sure. Well, yeah, they're exactly right. SB 54 does tie their hands. You know, I started law enforcement in California back in 1996 when there wasn't an SB 54, and the cooperation between state and local law enforcement and immigration officers, whether it was Border Patrol or ICE, was fantastic. And we didn't have the immigration problem that we see now. But with SB 54 and sanctuary cities, sanctuary states, and things like that, it creates an atmosphere of lawlessness, especially with immigration. And that's why we're in the communities now, because it's us and us alone that prosecute those immigration laws. If we had that buy-in and that help from the state and locals like we used to, I think you would see a lot, the communities would be a lot safer, and then you might not see Border Patrol as much in a place like Sacramento. But right now, when you have child rapists standing in front of big box stores or aggravated felons that have spent years and years in prison, or individuals that may have a significant criminal record in a foreign country, when those folks are in the community and nothing can be done about it, that's why you're going to see us in those communities. And when I said we're not going anywhere, that's what I'm talking about. The mission's not accomplished until those individuals are taken off the streets. And as you know, as we go after those individuals, anyone else that is an illegal alien is subject to arrest.
Are there any local jurisdictions that you think are handling this properly or doing a lot, therefore you are not in those communities, that you could share?
Again, we'll go where that threat is. I think there are some jurisdictions that that do the best job that they can. Again, they are restricted from working with immigration officers, with a few exceptions. However, there are some jurisdictions that we know do a fantastic job. You know, whether it's Sheriff Youngblood down in Bakersfield, Sheriff Bianco, and some of those sheriffs do a fantastic job in keeping their community safe. I can't say enough about the fact they do communicate and would love to work with us if they could. So we'll work with anyone that we can, any state or local agency, anywhere, anytime, any place.
We want to note we did ask Bovino to do the interview in person, but he was only available for a Zoom. Following that conversation, there was a motion filed in federal court by the United Farm Workers and the ACLU claiming that July Home Depot raid violated a court order. The motion says agents arrested people without reasonable suspicion and without assessing flight risk. It also claims they arrested an 18-year-old senior at Valley High School who was seeking asylum from Guatemala and was in full compliance with immigration court proceedings. We reached out to Border Patrol for their comment on these latest documents. We have not yet received a statement. One lawmaker very critical of these recent raids is U.S. Senator Alex Padilla. We sat down with him for a one-on-one interview when he was recently in Sacramento for a roundtable on immigration. One moment that I know shocked many earlier this summer was you being dragged out of a Department of Homeland Security press conference in which you were trying to get answers on really the various scenarios you just laid out. I know you met with Secretary Christino, but did you ever get the clarity that you were seeking in terms of all of this, or is it clear to you that this is just how the administration is going to operate and there should be some sort of response?
From the beginning, this administration has been anything but transparent. They want anything but accountability. That's why I was at the press conference after months and months of trying to get answers in committee hearings, through formal inquiries, et cetera. So, we have begun to get more data from the Department of Homeland Security and ICE specifically that affirms what we knew before. The vast majority of people that are being detained, that are being arrested, are not the dangerous violent criminals. They don't have a violent criminal conviction history. Ironically and very cruelly, it's the same group of people that were deemed essential at the beginning of the first Trump administration, at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, when they declared workers in construction and hospitality and healthcare, et cetera, as essential to our economy and to our security. But in this Trump administration, they're the target.
It seems like between the two parties, there is conviction versus what people are accused of. And Chief Gregory Bovino, the U.S. Border Patrol Sector Chief, has noted that a lot of who they're picking up have been accused of crimes, maybe not necessarily convicted. I mean, what would be your response to that distinction?
Well, it's fundamental to our democracy is what we call due process rights. Just because you're accused of something doesn't mean you're guilty. Right? We have a process for that. And anybody who's convicted of a violent criminal history, yes, they should be facing the consequences and the punishment for that. But an accusation alone has not been the case for our democracy in the past. But that's the standard that this administration is choosing to try to apply.
Gregory Bovino, we've had a very public raid at the Home Depot here in Sacramento. A handful of people were picked up. The Border Patrol chief went to the state capitol and filmed a video there where he basically declared that they're not going anywhere. And essentially he's pointed to California's sanctuary state laws to drive that. What's your response?
Yeah, look, for them it's just an excuse. What's clear, whether it's Bovino, whether it's Holman, whether it's Donald Trump himself, is they're just interested in the show. They just want the spectacle. These aggressive raids, if you notice, they're out there with camera people taking video, taking footage for their social media accounts. It's not a true focus on dangerous, violent criminals like they claim that it is. And they're not shy about it. When they are, and I'm talking about the border czar, right, Holman, in public, in interviews, saying all we need is to gauge their appearance or an occupation or maybe even their accents. They're profiling. They are profiling. They're denying it, but they are profiling. And when you profile, that's not enforcing the law. That's violating the law. They've been sued for it. They've lost in district court, and they've lost in the circuit court.
The Senate Bill 54, what's known as California sanctuary state laws, there is an acknowledgement that some of the people they've picked up have been convicted of crimes. Do you think California sanctuary state law, the way it's written, the way it is perfectly fine? Should there be changes? Or your thoughts on that?
Look, I think it's very clear to understand what sanctuary laws are and what they are not. All the sanctuary laws at the local level, at the state level, say is the state of California is not going to commit its resources to enforcing federal immigration law. That is the job of the federal government. Our job, especially members of the Senate and the House of Representatives, are to ensure that the federal laws are being enforced according to the Constitution and according to federal provisions. And we're seeing a lot of the violations in the way this Trump administration is doing it. But I think the state and local governments have every right to say, no, we want our local law enforcement resources to do their job of providing public safety at the local level.
You'll be able to see my full conversations with Padilla and Bavino on our website at KCRA.com. Coming up, my conversation with Andy Walz of Chevron as more refineries are pulling out of California. Welcome back to California Politics 360. A temporary win in California for the fossil fuel industry. Energy regulators postponed penalties on oil companies if their profits climb too high. This comes as the state tries to advance its climate goals while also maintaining an affordable fuel supply. But also, as of this week, Phillips 66 is reportedly winding down operations at its Southern California refinery that it plans to shut down by next month. Right before all of this, I sat down with Chevron executive Andy Walz about what makes it so hard for refineries to operate in the state.
Well, I think California's been trying to get rid of the refining business for about 25 years. That has taken a while. We've actually had a lot of refineries go away. But now we're seeing refineries leave when the demand for the products is even higher than the refiners are making. So real shortly, we're going to lose a refinery in Los Angeles that Phillips 66 runs. Valero announced they're going to close a refinery here in the Bay Area at Benicia. If that happens, California's going to lose another 20% of the gasoline that they use. And they're going to rely on other sources, and it's going to have to come from other places. It's going to be more costly, it's going to be less greenhouse gas friendly, and it's probably going to be less reliable.
And I don't expect you to speak for Phillips 66 or Valero, but what specifically right now makes it difficult to operate in California? What could have essentially been the last straw?
Well, I don't know what's happening, but inside Chevron, we're looking at our next big investment, and we're trying to figure out, do we want to make that investment in California, or do we want to make that investment somewhere else? Phillips 66 and Valero obviously had a decision to make, and it's difficult. California is, I've been saying California is uninvestable. Okay, we have too many regulations, too many laws, too many regulators, too many people chasing us for fines and fees and stuff, and it's just unlike any other place in the world. It is a very difficult place to run a refinery, and we run refineries really well. We run them cleaner and better and safer than anybody else in the world, and it's just a very difficult place to run your business. And it's sad because we've been in California for 150 years, but it's been a 25-year process to try to get rid of us, and it's now happening. And I wish the regulators and legislatures would figure this out and do something about it. They're talking a little bit differently today. There may be some progress, but it has to be real progress, and it has to be sustainable and durable through multiple administrations. It cannot be a couple-year solution. That won't solve the problem.
Walz said using local crude in-state oil would bring down California gas prices. Right now, they are the highest in the nation. Some analysts say the recent vote to pause that profits penalty signals a shift in focus toward affordability. When we come back, our reporter roundtable on what to expect this upcoming week at the state capitol. This upcoming week will be a hectic one for state lawmakers. It's the final week of the legislative session when they have until midnight Friday to pass new state laws for the year. Joining us now, two seasoned California politics reporters, Alexi Kosseff with Cal Matters, Sophia Bollag with the San Francisco Chronicle. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Sophia, I want to start with you. What are you tracking going into this week?
A lot of things. I'll start with some tech bills that we're following at the Chronicle. Basically, there are a lot of different proposals to rein in AI, impose regulations on AI, impose regulations on social media. Wide range of bills, everything from proposed warning labels on social media websites, restrictions on AI chatbots for minors. Obviously, for a lot of these proposals, as you might expect, there's been some pretty stiff opposition from the tech industry, which is pretty powerful here in the Capitol. So we'll see what gets through. And then depending on what gets through this week, we'll see what the governor decides to do, because of course, everything needs final approval from him. And he's been a long industry ally of the tech industry.
Right.
So.
The governor will have a lot to decide. Alexi, what are you tracking in this space?
I think the biggest thing I'm watching for is whether the legislature, the governor, and the oil industry are going to be able to come together on an agreement about a wide variety of things that have a huge implication for the future of the industry and oil prices and gas prices in the state. That includes a potential extension of the cap and trade system, which could, put new regulations and extend these sort of costs that the industry has to pay for polluting, as well as a potential deal that could allow for more pumping of oil down in Kern County.
Yeah, big topic at the state capitol. Another huge topic that's dominated this legislative session is the Trump administration and its relationship with California. Sophia, what have you been tracking in this space? What could you see play out? What impact does Trump have on this week?
Yeah, well, I think a huge impact. There are dozens of bills that have been introduced this year by Democrats in California, who obviously have supermajorities in the legislature. Lots of bills responding directly to Trump. Many of those bills that I'm tracking have to do with protecting sort of patient privacy for women who are seeking abortions. There's a number of abortion pill-related bills that I'm tracking. Also, transgender people who are seeking health care. There's also a lot of immigration bills, some of which passed this previous week. And we'll see what ultimately gets through at the end of it.
Yeah, Alexi, what about you? What are you seeing the Trump administration having an impact on this week?
I think one of the most interesting and controversial proposals could be this effort to ban law enforcement officers in the state from wearing face masks while they're doing their job. This has really come in response to these raids that we've seen taking place throughout the state from federal immigration agents that have had their faces covered and no identification. Lawmakers are pushing back, saying, you can't do that here. And if that passes, there could be all kinds of constitutional questions raised about whether the state or federal authority supersedes here, and who really gets to decide how law enforcement does their job in California. So watch out if that gets through. The Trump administration will probably sue so quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And it'll be interesting to even see if Governor Gavin Newsom touches that. All right, Alexi, Sophia, thank you so much for your insight. We really appreciate you. All right, well, we'll be right back. Welcome back to California Politics 360. We're taking a look back in the archives at this week in state history. Back in 1982, this Carmichael mansion you see on your screen was put up for sale. It was intended to be the governor's mansion. Governor Reagan broke ground on the property back in 1974. The land was donated by his supporters. But the mansion was built after Jerry Brown took office. He refused to live there, calling it an extravagant place.
I would be happier if it was in Bel Air. I think we'd get a better deal for it. In Sacramento, it may be overbuilt. 12,000 square foot home may be a little large for the market here, but we won't know until we try.
It was eventually sold. It had 9 bedrooms, 10 bathrooms, and 3 kitchens. Later, owners went on to add a pool and other features. Well, thank you so much for joining us this week for California Politics 360. We'll see you right back here next week.